Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. I appreciate you joining me today. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. We are going to look at another YouTuber's video about the top 10 answers to common interview questions. This is going to be by one of my favorite content creators, Leila Hormozi, who is the CEO alongside her husband of acquisition.com. So she is the CEO of a portfolio organization. So she's not only involved in all of the hiring, firing, and personnel and operations of her portfolio company itself, but also all of the companies in which they have minority stakes. So the way this is going to go is we'll go through each question. I'll give you my 2 cents on how to answer it, then let her provide what she was saying for the answer. And if there's any discrepancies, kind of explain different thoughts and opinions. And if we're aligned, then we'll move on through. But without further ado, let's dive in.
I'm going to help you craft your answers to the top 10 questions so that you can land your ideal job. As a hiring manager and a CEO, I've done thousands of interviews and I've interviewed thousands of people. And so I can tell you exactly what an employer is looking for. But on the other side, I was an employee for years before I had my own business. So I know what it's like to be on the other side of the table. And so I feel like I have a unique perspective that I can bring together to present to you these answers. As a bonus at the end of this video, I'm also going to give you the answer to one of the most important questions that can dictate whether you get more money or less money in your new role. The number one question that people ask in an interview is not really a question, it's tell me about yourself.
All right, so first question, tell me about yourself. If you guys have watched multiple of my videos on interviewing and my content or downloaded my free interview guide, you will know I have a pretty standard formula for addressing this question. The first things first is I like to answer this actual question, or like she said, it's not actually a question, with a question in of itself. Do you want to know personal or professional? And this is always a culture gauge, and it's also to give you a second to calm your nerves, reduce your anxiety, because a lot of people, especially early on in their careers, maybe don't feel super comfortable in an interview setting, and it's usually because of a lack of control and feeling like you aren't involved or your destiny's in their hands. And responding with a question puts you in the driver's seat immediately from the beginning, which not only makes you look good, it makes you feel very dominant and contributory to the interview from the other side of the table's point of view, but it also helps you to calm your nerves and feel like you are also in control as well. And you're almost always going to get both as the answer. And so when it comes to the professional side, what I say is you want to have a very condensed kind of 1 to 2 minute speech where you are summarizing all of your relevant experience, not only to the job, but also to the company. And so what you're going to be doing here is talking about where you've been, your most recent relevant experience. If this is maybe you going for a promotion and something you haven't held before, from a title perspective, then you want to talk about the recent experience that leads up to that in your career trajectory and career path. If you're maybe in leadership or new in leadership and are maybe have on your resume a lot of individual contributor roles, then you want to talk about your journey very quickly. But you want to talk about the specific impacts and achievements that you made throughout your career. And you want to relate those impacts and achievements directly to the job description that you are applying for. So if they are saying that they are looking for an IT guy who has experience with certain technologies or has maybe automated and implemented AI, things like that, then you want to showcase those achievements in your initial tell me about yourself. So you want to relate it to the company and to their values and the job description and mission if those things are present within the job description as well. But ultimately, it should be about a 1 to 2 minute summary. It should not be like this giant verbose narrative of, going all the way back to, when you were in high school and telling, your life story, for lack of a better phrase. We don't want to do that. 1 to 2 minute speech, keep it super condensed. All right, let's see what Layla has to say here.
An open-ended question that most people misinterpret. Why do they misinterpret it? I can tell you that 9 times out of 10, when I say, tell me about yourself to somebody on an interview, what they come back with is they want to tell me their whole life story. Well, I grew up in Connecticut and I went to listen, nobody gives a fuck. They don't care about your life story. They don't care where you grow up. You're wasting.
All right, so she puts it a little bit more blunt than I do, but absolutely correct.
Their time. They need to get to the next interview. What they actually want to know is give me your sales pitch as to why you're fit for this role. They want to hear your sales pitch. Why are you uniquely qualified? What experiences do you have that relate to the role that then make you the right candidate? What they're really asking when they say, tell me about yourself, is they're saying, what value do you bring to this company and role? So I want you to not even think. When someone says, tell me about yourself, switch. It's what value do you bring to this company and role? How do you go about answering this question?
This is spot on. Value is honestly the core of the entire interview process, start to finish. So I tell people and all of my clients that your resume is a risk mitigation document. It's to get your foot in the door. That is your half first impression. But really the difference between your resume and the interview is not about regurgitating or summarizing your resume, but it's actually about telling the story and the narrative of the values that you, or the value that you have driven and the impact that you have made at your previous organizations or in your previous roles. Or if you're early in your career, then you want to talk about the projects that you did within school or what drives you on a character level that's going to make you successful in this entry level position. So you want to focus on value and impact. She's absolutely correct.
The first piece is what you want to say is where you've been. So say you're applying for a customer success representative or a customer success manager. I've been a customer success manager at 3 of the Fortune 500 companies and over the last 8 years. And what I was able to do at those 3 companies is drive X, Y, and Z results. So the first thing you want to do is say what you have been, the exact title and role, and what results you have driven.
So this is actually perfectly fine. I actually do like throwing in the years of experience that you've been either the particular role or that you have put into maybe going into this stretch role. If there's going to be responsibilities or like I mentioned before, if it's more of a promotional type aspect. So maybe you've always been a individual contributor or senior kind of technical person or a senior team lead within your organization or past career. And maybe now you're looking to go into manager or from manager to director or so on and so forth. Yes, kind of showcasing the amount of years that you've dedicated that have led you to either be in the role that you are applying for again, or that are setting you up for success and why you're qualified for that promotion and that stretch. That's completely fine. I think that the company size can be a hit or miss depending on how relevant that is to the organization that you are going to. Because sometimes if you're applying to a small, medium business and maybe you've been in the Fortune 500 world, that might not work in your favor. And sometimes the opposite is true as well. If you've only been in small, medium business and you're going for Fortune 500, that could go against you. So I would weigh that if it's, again, tailoring to the company that you are at. Is it a like? Have you worked for companies in similar size and scope and compliance and industry to the type of, to the company that you're applying for now? If so, worth mentioning. If not, might be a risk factor that's not worth going for.
So title, results. The second piece, once you've explained the title and results, is what are your biggest strengths? I've been a customer success manager at these 3 Fortune 500 companies. I drove these results where I increased retention from 10% retention to 80% retention. And my biggest strengths are blank. My biggest strengths are that I'm fantastic at decreasing time to value for customers. In fact, at my last company, I was able to decrease time to value by 20% in just a quarter. And then you want to bring it home by saying, so the reason I applied to work here is relate it back to why that pertains to the role. And I saw that you were looking for a customer success manager to get clients ramped up and onboarded more quickly. And I figured that would be a good fit because I've done that in all these last 3 roles. And I was able to actually increase our revenue per account by $4,000. You're going to all tie it back to how it relates to you applying for this job. So where have you been? What results has it driven? What's your biggest strength? And how does that correlate to this role here? Next time someone asks you, tell me about yourself. Don't tell.
All right. So I think with that, yeah, we were pretty spot on. She said almost exactly what I said, a slightly different tweak and formula with showcasing the years of experience and potentially the company size and industry you've worked in. But outside of that, it was tailoring to the job description and making sure that it tied back to that company specifically. All right, so let's go ahead and see what our second question is going to be.
Tell them about yourself. Tell them why you're qualified for this role. A hiring manager usually makes the decision as to whether or not they're going to hire a person in the first 15 minutes of the interview. And this is actually where most people drop the ball. They go through all the effort. They go and fill out the application. They research the company. They submit the application. They write a cover letter. They do all this pre-work to get to the interview. And then they're not thinking about how they're going to answer the questions. This isn't to give you some scripts in terms of, I want you to regurgitate this on your interview. This is to give you the framework to understand what is the employer actually asking when they ask you these top 10 questions.
All right. Before we get to the second question, I want to comment on a couple of things she said here. She said that the first 15 minutes is a lot of time when the interview manager or hiring manager has decided. I think it's actually less than that. I really think you have 5, maybe 7 minutes. Overall, about 2 to 3 questions. That's really what you have. So I would actually say that really you're looking to make an impact and really showcase yourself even more aggressively from a shrunken timeline perspective. And then the other thing that she said there, in addition to the 5 to 10 minutes, was about the fact that this is where people drop the ball. And I completely agree with that as well. I know that I mentioned people get a lot of times nervous and anxious going into an interview, and that can mean that early on is the most stressful for you. But that's why I stress kicking that answer off of personal or professional as my initial response to allow you to calm your nerves and you to really kick the interview off with a bang. Okay, what's our second question?
Second most asked question on an interview is walk me through your resume. What I see a lot is that.
All right, walk me through your resume. So this is actually going to tie back a little bit to the tell me about yourself, but this is where I would say that most people, again, go too verbose. So where tell me about yourself, people go back to their life story. They start back, I'm a child that grew up in blah, 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 or in high school, this, then that. Yeah. So people do the same thing for their resume. They, maybe have 5, 6 positions, or if you're entry level, then maybe you have, only a couple positions in your schooling, and they try to tell the last few years of their life story. That's not what you want to do. You really want to stick to only what is relevant to the job description as the focus of walking through your resume. Now, again, if maybe you are progressing in your career and you've had a position or two before and you're continuing to work your way up through the ranks, then depending on how standard or related that is, then that's going to depend on how much time you have. So take, for instance, someone like myself, who I've been in leadership on the IT side now for 7 years. I am at that director level. I still have some individual contributor roles on my resume because I don't have 15 plus years or a full resume dedicated solely to leadership. So what I will usually do is take a minute to just say, hey, my IT path has been very traditional, starting at Geek Squad and then working my way into enterprise desktop support and then infrastructure administration and then ultimately engineering. And I was in engineering for about 5 years, and I was team lead multiple times, taking on these leadership responsibilities. And then for the last 7 years is where I've been a mixture of team lead and dedicated manager and senior manager, doing these responsibilities that relate to the given position that I'm going for now. So I'm going to mention the individual contributor roles, but I'm going to focus on the highlights and achievements and impact that I've made in the leadership roles. So from team lead, manager, and senior manager, and the individual contributor, I'm just going to summarize that journey as being very, very standard, maybe a standout thing or two, but that should really be, like I said, 30 seconds or less, minute or less. We're not looking to walk through every single bullet point you have, every single position from start to finish, unless that's actually what they ask for. Sometimes people will say, I would like you to walk me through position by position, telling me what you did, what had you leave, why did you take it, so on and so forth. Then maybe actually spend, a full minute or two on each position. But by default, if they're just saying, walk me through it, treat it like tell me about yourself. But now you're getting into a little bit more of the specifics and highlighting what is relevant directly to this position and only what is relevant in this position. And if you're on the entry level side of the equation, to where you might not have any experience, or then you want to stick to the projects in school and classes that you took that were directly relevant or tied to the skill set of the entry-level position you are applying for. And if you had maybe some jobs in college or some entry-level positions working in retail or hospitality or things like that when you were latter part of high school, and there's some transferable skills, then highlight those pieces as well. But that would be my advice here of walking through the resume. Let's see what Layla has to say.
People go line by line. It's like, first I worked at Subway, then I worked at this, I had an internship, and it's like nobody, again, gives a fuck. They want to hear about the relevant experience. So the first thing you want to do is you want to skip through anything that's not related to this job. If it doesn't pertain to this job in any way and it adds no value to them, then don't talk about it. So only pick the experiences that relate to this specific role. Take those experiences and translate them to them. They've already read your resume. That's why you're here for the interview. They don't want you to read it off and say the exact same things from the resume. What they want you to do is talk about how each of those experiences translates to this role.
That is a very good point. Is they've already read your resume, so you're not looking to regurgitate that. It's like I was saying earlier, where you're looking to be a little bit more on the narrative side and storytelling and things that they haven't learned already from your resume. So that's what you're really trying to do throughout the interview process, is fill in the gaps of the fact that you only had 1 to 2 pages for your resume from a real estate perspective. So you can't put every single detail of every single story of which you have on your career or in your education. That's what we're looking to do here throughout the whole interview process. And you want to tailor it specifically to the company. Okay, back to Layla.
because you've done the research on the company, you've done the research on the role, and you can translate it for them. The third most common question asked in an interview is, why do you want to work at this company? I have done.
All right. Why do you want to work at this company? So this is one that it's funny because I think this question is actually dying overall from a frequency perspective. I tend to see this one a lot less, but if I were to get this question, this is going to be where doing your research is paying off. When you are looking at their LinkedIn page, looking at their website, and you're gathering their mission and their values, to me, this particular one is twofold. You want to focus on the culture that you could gather or the initiatives that you can gather and why that is something that you are passionate about or that drives you to be successful for them. You want to make it about them. I actually relate this similar to being in a relationship or being married. There is no you and me. There is no I and you. It is a we and an us. Throughout the whole interview process, this is actually one of my big hacks from a language perspective that I tell everyone that I work with is you want to already use language as if you are in the in-group, as if it's assumed you're going to get the offer. Speak in us's and we's, and that together we will accomplish blank. It is not I, it is not you, it is together and a we. And this is where when you're talking about why you want to work for the company, you want to say, well, when I was researching, I noticed this, this, and this, and I think that together we can accomplish this mission by doing this thing together. It is all about bringing the parties together and bringing everything together and tailoring it to them. And you want to tie it back to the research. And this is what's going to separate you from above and beyond. It's actually a common sales tactic. It's called the assumed close, where you don't even say, do you want to move forward, or does this sound good to you? It's which credit card do you want to put it on, or how do you want to pay? It's just assuming that the act of paying or the act of moving forward isn't even a question. We're just trying to figure out, how do you pay me so we can get started? And that's what you're doing here is you're assuming you're going to get the offer. You're assuming that together is already there. So let's see what Layla has to say.
Done thousands of interviews, and most of the time, surprisingly, this answer is not answered correctly. What they want to hear is how much research you've done on the company and how excited you are about the role. They want to hear someone that relates to the mission. They really live by the values. They really feel like this role is exactly what's meant for them, and this is part of their career path that can get them to their ultimate goal. What they don't want is for you to talk about the selfish reasons as to why you apply. We all know that most of the reasons people apply for jobs are they see really good pay, good benefits. There's a lot of benefits to them. When you're looking for a job, you're looking for the pieces that pertain to you. They're like, this is how this would make my life better. That doesn't mean that that's what you want to express in an interview, because they already by default assume that if you apply for that job, those are things that are non-negotiables for you. Pay, your benefits, work remote or not remote, those kind of things.
I actually just want to comment here on non-negotiables in general. This is something that you should do at the beginning of any job search that you do, is determine what your non-negotiables are. And this can be exactly like what she has here: pay, benefits, working remotely, hybrid, relocating, not relocating. Are there certain industries? I've had it be a common question throughout, my career. Am I okay working in maybe non-green industries or non-green companies or things like that? Know what your actual negotiables are and your non-negotiables are. But understand that if you are going to label something as non-negotiable, it is not an option to change, to remove, or anything. So the more non-negotiables you have, the smaller scope of positions that might be open to you. But yes, these particular things are almost always assumed to some degree. Oh, and of course now is when we have a technical problem.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, people like Geico because it's just easy. Bundling, for example. You've got car insurance.
I'm going to help you craft
sorry about
answers
this.
to the top.
All right.
Is how much research you've done on the company and how excited you are about the role. They want to hear someone that relates to the mission. They really live by the values. They really feel like this role is exactly what's meant for them, and this is part of their career path that can get them to their ultimate goal. What they don't want is for you to talk about the selfish reasons as to why you apply. We all know that most of the reasons people apply for jobs are they see really good pay, good benefits. There's a lot of benefits to them. When you're looking for a job, you're looking for the pieces that pertain to you. They're like, this is how this would make my life better. That doesn't mean that that's what you want to express in an interview, because they already by default assume that if you apply for that job, those are things that are non-negotiables for you. Pay, your benefits, work remote or not remote, those kinds of things. What they're looking for in that question is they want to hear how selfless you are. They want to hear how company-centric versus self-centric you are. And if you say anything about pay, benefits, working remote, that's all going in self-centric bucket, which they don't want to hire those people. What they want to hear is mission, values, vision, career path. That goes in company-centric bucket. And so you want to make sure that you have a company-centric answer to that. Research the company, look at their mission, look at their values, study their Glassdoor, look at their LinkedIn, and look at all the things that you like about that company, and have an answer prepared that is company-centric, not self-centric. So
I think this distinction is brilliant. Is company-centric versus self-centric. So like I said, I made the distinction from a language perspective. Don't use the I's and you's, but use we and us. This is another frame. And this is why I like to look at different content creators and also bring them to your attention as well, is because maybe the way that I frame it and the way that I say it doesn't necessarily hit the brain correctly for you, but this is another content creator, good or bad, and in this case, it's continuing out to be good and a lot of alignment here, is going to hit you very differently. Okay, get back to Layla.
The way you want to frame this answer is really 3 R's: research, recognition, and right fit. So research, tie your answer into, well, when I was looking up the company, what I found on your LinkedIn was your mission talks about recognition. I love the fact that your values talk about X, Y, and Z, because I actually relate to that because I live my life in X, Y, and Z way, and then right fit. And because of that, I felt like I was the right fit for this role because those things resonated with me so much. Research, recognition, right fit.
Oh, just slightly missed my pause there. Okay, I actually think that that's also another great framework. So research, recognition, right fit as a formula or framework to determine or answer why this company, why are you looking to work for us? I think that that is brilliant. And it ties back to almost exactly what I said as well. Again, just a slightly different framework. When you are doing your research, depending on the source, notate that source. And again, whether it be Glassdoor, whether it be their website, whether it be LinkedIn or another social media platform, that you want to take that information in, relate back to it, gather what their mission, values, initiatives, if they're in conferences, if they are partners in different group memberships or industry related things, then you want to take note of all of those different things. And then you want to recognize the impact and how you are going to be able to do that and why you are a right fit to help them fulfill what they are trying to do. Again, and all of this is using the language of we and us and together, that type of language. All right.
The 5th most common question asked is, what would you consider to be your weakness?
Okay. What would you consider to be your weakness? The biggest mistake that I'm going to say that people make here is they try to position a strength as a weakness. My biggest weakness is that I just work too much, or that I just care too much, or that I go above and beyond to the nth degree. To me, that is never my recommendation. The interview is about value driving and impact. And it's also understanding that unless you are interviewing for CEO or the top echelon, and even that, this still isn't going to directly apply, is that you are also not a perfect human. And so recognizing that while you have all of these value driving things, you understand what your next growth oriented option or path is going to be. So you want to give a genuine weakness. You want to expose your humanity for a second, relate on the humanity perspective. Because what sometimes happens is a really, really cool situation is that you convey your weakness. So for me, looking at a director leadership level, so where I need a little bit more work is on the strategy and business acumen side of the equation. So I can tell people, hey, I'm struggling a little bit with the business acumen and strategy. So I have been researching business ownership books or reading business ownership books and taking Udemy courses. Most recently, what I am looking at is Choose Your Enemies Wisely by Patrick Bet-David. And here's what I'm learning from, right? I'm giving my genuine, here is my weakness, and here's what I'm doing to true it up, and here's what I'm doing on my growth path. And this also might spark them to where maybe they've read the material or they have advice, or because the person that's interviewing you is generally above you in some capacity. So they'd actually might be able to have a quick little back and forth and discussion that, again, is very organic, very relatable, and very memorable about you and how they can contribute to your growth path. Again, if you are value and impact oriented in solving their problems throughout the whole interview process, they might return that favor by giving you their advice and their 2 cents on your particular weakness and growth path. So people, what I say, get wrong here is they, like I said, they just try to reposition a strength as a weakness. And to me, you want to give a genuine human weakness. You want to say, this is what I'm struggling with. This is my current way of solving it. Here's the current actions right now that I'm taking, but here's maybe my roadmap over the next 3 months or 30 days or whatever, however long you think it's going to take you or that you have mapped out to solve this particular skill deficit. And here's my solution of what I'm thinking. And then you can even end this and parlay this into a question of saying, I'd love to know maybe what you would do to solve this particular problem if you consider this to be a strength of yours or something along those lines, to where then you spark a discussion gathering more about the company culture in terms of what they do for growth and coaching and continuing education and those sorts of things. So let's see what Layla has to say.
Most people get this one wrong, because what most people say is something like, I just work too hard, or I'm just such a perfectionist, I just tend to do too much. I don't even know if I've had someone answer this one well. What I would like to explain is that, one, everyone knows that's bullshit. Perfectionist, haven't heard that one in the last 7 interviews I did today. Work too hard. So did Sally, Gary, and this guy who eventually got fired because they were lazy as shit. Nobody believes when you say that about yourself. So don't pick something that's actually a strength disguised as a weakness. Actually tell them what your weaknesses are, and then explain how you are resilient despite those weaknesses.
Okay.
Now get 20% off at Chewy Pharmacy. These days, we get everything delivered.
So this is a chance for you to admit a flaw and then talk about how you handle those flaws. Here's an example. Say that you're a customer success manager. Maybe talk about the fact that you're bad at math, and that was something you struggled with your whole life. And here's how you've overcome being bad at math. I took tutoring, I tried this, I did all these things. It's still gotten me down because I'm still pretty bad at math, but I've been working on it by taking these lessons and doing this online course so I can get better at math, because I do think it'll help me in different areas of my life, like the fact that I rent Airbnbs on the side and I don't know how to do the math. Basically, what you want to do is pick a weakness that doesn't pertain to the role, so it's not something that will detract from you getting this job, but it is something that's a weakness for you. The 6th question that people ask on interviews that is the most...
Okay, before we actually move on, that's an interesting tactic. I have not thought of that before. So I felt like we were like 90% aligned there until she threw in the specific part in terms of when talking about your weakness, choose one that is not directly related to the position itself, but showcase how you overcome it and the things that you were still able to do despite it. And I think that's a very interesting tactic. I could see that working for you because, again, you're not exposing yourself to the risk of showing that you lack a skill. But I think that if you do demonstrate the resilience and the path and the roadmap for you to resolve that, even if it is related, that you still end up winning. I can say that I have never, in my experience of my clients or myself, had a negative reaction when it's framed this way. That when it is framed, hey, yes, I have this weakness that relates to this job, but here's how I'm overcoming it. Here's what I'm doing right now, and here's what I'm doing tomorrow. And you can demonstrate that you are someone who is action-oriented and is results-oriented. While you are technically exposing yourself to risk, I don't think it's to another degree. I would say that Layla's strategy here of maybe choosing a weakness that is less relevant to the position, but still showcases your humanity and self-awareness. So you're getting the human and relationship building aspect of exposing a genuine weakness, and you're checking that box. I think that's actually another valid strategy that I hadn't thought of before. So still would say solid choice on Layla's part. Okay, let's see what our 6th question is.
Most common is, what makes you unique?
What makes you unique? So I think that the biggest thing here is people are, this is going to be framed or asked maybe a couple different ways of, why you, or something that I like to do for a lot of people that I actually interview when I'm on the hiring manager side of the table is, what is your elevator speech? These sorts of types of questions. And the biggest thing that I'm looking for, again, is I want you to embrace your weird. What is it that genuinely separates you? So a lot like the weakness, right? Where I don't want you to mask a strength, or I don't want you to try to make yourself look good because of the weakness, but I want something genuine. That's what I want here from a unique perspective. So if you are somebody who, like, my big kind of unique value proposition is that I work very long hours. I am continually growth minded. I hate complacency. Monotony is my enemy. I also am a big philosophy and thought oriented type of individual. So I might give some of those examples. And tie it all into that my unique value proposition is not just the experiences that I have and the value that I've made, but it is that I refuse to stand still. Here's how I've proven that. This has been my growth path and the aggressive timeline in which I've achieved it and that I've accomplished it, and the people that I have brought along the way and gotten them to move up and gotten them to excel their careers because I'm now at that director level of leadership, so on and so forth. I just want it to be genuine about what your unique weird is. And when it comes to learning, showcase your learning style, right? Like, so is it YouTube videos? Is it hands-on or a hands-on experience in labs? Is it maybe taking courses online? Is it going to school? Whatever it might be, showcase that side of it as well, but genuinely show your weird. That's what I'm going to say here for answering what makes you unique. All right, let's see what Layla has to say.
Someone's asking what makes you unique. They don't really want to know anything about, what you did in high school or college, or I got this, or I was the scholar of something. They don't care about any of those things. What they want to know is, why should they hire you and not somebody else? That is what that question means. Why are you unique for this role? Why should I hire you and not the other 5 people I've interviewed today? Tell me now. That's what this question is asking. When you are presenting, why should they hire you and not somebody else? What I want you to think about is unique pairings. So what is it that makes you different than others in what you do? So if you look at some of the most talented people, they typically have unique pairings in terms of skill sets. The best person in a creative role might also be very organized. That's a unique pairing, because typically people in creative roles are actually not organized. And the fact that somebody is organized or extremely meticulous would be a unique pairing. Say that you're applying for a financial role, and then you say, actually, I have really high, people skills, and I actually have done lots of presentations on leadership and management, all these other things. Wow, that's a unique pairing, because not only am I getting that person that's going to fill a financial role, but they can also contribute to all these other things in the company because of this skill set they have. But when that person asks you what makes you unique, then you want to think about, what is your unique pairing? What's a skill set that you have that is contrary to a different skill set and together are rare to be seen? The 7th.
Okay, this is actually, again, very brilliant. I did not mention this, and it's funny because it's something that I think more organically comes up in my own interviews as well as the clients that I work with, but it's such a succinct way to frame it. So I'm not going to really take away or modify anything, but absolutely, when you look at your peers and the people around you, and when you see that they lack something on a consistent basis that you have, that is your unique pairing here. So one of my big things I've done throughout my whole IT career is I am great with people, even though I'm also highly technical. So usually highly technical people are very introverted and lack the people skills and lack the executive relationship building, so on and so forth. That is something I've excelled at my entire career because of my background of having a family business that was in retail. Toss that aside though, that's a different day. But definitely this is a great way to frame it, is when, again, it's what is your, I said, what is your weird? But this is a really great framing as well. What are your unique pairing skill sets? Brilliant. I like it. Kudos to Layla. Okay. What is our 7th question here?
Most commonly asked question is, why are you leaving your current role? So if you...
Okay. Why are you leaving your current role? So the thing that you want to do here from my perspective is, first off, I mentioned this in a previous video. I believe it was the top 4 red flags that a hiring manager has, is never, ever, ever talk bad about the previous organization, no matter how bad it was, because there is always a framing that you can do it. So even if you had a toxic and abusive manager who just made your life miserable, right? The reason that you're looking is because the growth path that you wanted and the culture that you wanted to be a part of that was rooted in blank mission, vision, values, etc., that wasn't necessarily present, and that is the type of organization you are looking for. Or again, if you're stretching for a promotion, then you can use that as the reason why you're looking for a new role. I was looking for a new role because I believe that I am ready because of XYZ for this promotion and this given role. And I attempted to work with my previous organization and their leadership, and unfortunately the opportunity wasn't there. Again, you're not talking bad about them. You're not bringing up that things didn't go well or that it was toxic or whatever it might be. So that is rule number 1. Never, ever, ever talk bad. But the second is you genuinely want to be honest, because you want to bring this into your initial kind of first 90 days at the organization. Is you're going to be looking to deliver on whatever it was that made you look for a new role. So again, if it was contributing to a particular type of culture or seeking out a particular type of culture, you participating and building in that. If it was career growth and opportunity and stretch opportunities, then you want to make sure that from the beginning that you are learning what that stretch opportunity is going to be like, and again, contributing to that. So you want it to be honest and genuine, because you want to be able to deliver and fulfill it and not feel like they were sold a false bill of goods. So those are kind of the two pieces, is you want to be honest, but you always want to frame it in a positive way. And again, just like a lot of these questions have been, is you want them to be value-oriented and impact-oriented to the organization, to the job description, and the research that you uncovered. So you want to tie it back to them, that what had me looking in the job market was, again, this particular culture, this particular opportunity, in order to make this impact with a company and team that had this vision or this mission or these values or this, right? And well, that is what made me look to your particular company for the particular position and apply for this one. And when I look at, the previous organization, it just wasn't there. So that's how you can not badmouth them, but you want to frame it on the positive. So again, do not talk bad about the previous employer. You want to showcase what it is that you wanted out of the previous employer that wasn't there, and then why that's related to them and why that's going to be valuable and impact driving to that company. Let's see if Layla agrees with my formula here.
Currently are in a job, they're going to ask you, why are you leaving that role? Here's what myself as an employer really wants to know. What are the red flags that are the reason that you're leaving, and do they exist here in this company? So that I can just stop this now because maybe it's not a fit. And that's what they really want to know is, are there the same things there that there are here? And so if there's any crossover, then that's not something that they would want, because they don't want you to just leave this job too. What they don't want is they don't want you to sit there and complain about your last job, to talk shit about your last employer. Even if you're like, oh, listen, if you say, I'm not trying to talk shit, you're talking shit, because you're just literally, what's going to follow that is shit talking. But the fact that you said, I'm not trying to talk shit, you're hiding it. They can sense that. Don't do it. Just say, here's the reasons I left, and I don't think that pertains to this role here. Even better is to say, here's the reasons I left, and the reason that I'm so interested in this job is because you've expressed these things, which are the things that I want that I didn't have here. The eighth most...
Completely agree. So I don't think I need to say much there about that particular interview question. So let's just jump in to see what number 8 is.
Most commonly asked questions is, what are your career aspirations?
Okay. So this is actually, again, a wonderful question that most people get wrong because they're scared to say so. Or the other common thing that I get a lot of my clients from is because they don't know what they are. So those are the two most common mistakes, is people are dishonest about their career aspirations because maybe it's that hiring manager's job. And that is your aspiration, or even higher on the totem pole. And you're scared that that's going to make them think, oh man, this person's going to replace me and be seeking blah, blah, blah. And they just make this story up in their head that it's just not going to go well. So that's issue number 1. It's just dishonesty or fear of saying what it actually is. Second, people don't know. Okay, so the second one, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on. But if you don't know, figure it out. Seek help, seek a coach, seek a mentor, whatever it might be. But sit down and genuinely ask yourself, like, where do you see yourself in? Pick a reasonable amount of time. If you're very entry level in your career, you're probably only talking 1 to 2 years. If you are maybe, mid-level career, so about 5 to 7 years in, you could probably think a little bit longer, maybe 2 to 3 years. And if you are in leadership, if you're a manager, director, etc., you are probably thinking 5+ years down the road. Your ability to accurately predict time horizons is much better as you age and get older, because you have a more accurate and dialed compass of being able to actually predict what that path is going to be. So if you don't know what it is, define it, figure it out, and go from there. Okay, now the honesty one as well. Again, very simple. Flat out say what it is. On my recent job search that I just had last year here in August, September, I literally was interviewed by a CTO, and I said, my career aspiration is your job. That's what I want. I want to be in your chair 3 to 5 years from now. And whether that's you moving over, you retiring, you becoming CEO and getting promoted, I don't know. At the very least, I want to be ready the day that you are no longer in that position for this organization, right? That is what I told him. And he said, awesome. Like, we can work on that. And that was actually a job that I ended up getting the offer for. So it did not detract from it. I chose a different job offer that I had on the table, ultimately in that job search. But that should tell you, like, you want to be honest. You want to be genuine, even if it's that person's job. And if that person is insecure or they take it negatively that you want to be them or surpass them or whatever it is, and that's a reason that you don't get that position, I promise you, you did not miss out on working for that company or working out for that or working for that leader. You absolutely missed nothing. That was not a good fit. If you genuinely have aspirations, define them and express them, and that penalizes you for it, that is not a company that you want to be at. So those are my pieces of advice of where people generally make the mistake on here. Is they're dishonest on expressing their career aspirations, or they just don't know and they need to define them. All right, let's jump into Layla's answer, see how this goes.
What does an employer actually want to know? They want to know, how long are you going to be here? That is what it means when they say, what are your career aspirations? Don't bullshit. It's explain what you want to get from this job. Explain how long you see yourself being here, and explain if you're flexible or rigid in your ways. Some people want to be a certain place from maybe 100 employees to 300 employees, and then they're out. Some people want to complete what I call a mission while they're there to build a certain something, and then after they've built that thing, they're gone. So explain what your objective is in applying and working at this company, and then also explain that if you were ever to transition out, you can always talk about, I can see myself being here for 4 years, building X department, Y department. Beyond that, I don't know if there's room for me, but I can see myself being here and committing a solid 4 years. And obviously, you know, when the time comes that I was no longer needed, there's no more growth, I would always make sure to backfill myself, because that's what people are really scared of. They're scared of you leaving and not backfilling yourself. Be honest, but also talk about the things that you would do if the time came when you were no longer a fit. The ninth.
Okay, I actually don't necessarily have a criticism here. I more have an asterisk, I think, to that advice, because it's just piggybacking on the honesty piece that I recommended and that I said is when you are talking about your career aspirations, you want to be genuine and you want to be honest. The thing that Layla added there was that if you maybe don't see yourself at the particular company for, you know, beyond 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, etc., be willing to express that, let them know the impact and value that you want to drive in your time there and why you're taking this job. And if there is the opportunity for continued growth and continued mission accomplishment and those sorts of things, that this will continue to work out. But it also might not. But if it's not, then I will absolutely put a succession plan in place, have my backfill ready, so on and so forth. I am going to say that the reason I'm going to put an asterisk on that is I don't necessarily disagree, but my gut reaction to that is it is probably a successful formula for senior leadership, where you might be coming in, like the example she gave of building a department, building a division, like making something, right? I think that could be a good example. But if you are at the individual contributor, supervisor, even low-level management, I question whether or not that's a good strategy. My gut reaction is that will be below senior leadership, so below director level, essentially. So if you are supervisor, manager, team lead, contributor, I think that you might be exposing yourself to too much risk. That would be my advice and my 2 cents. If you are in the senior leadership example, I think it's completely fine to say, hey, you are looking for a director or a VP or a C-level to come in and do this at the company. And this is what I want to do. And beyond that, I'm not sure, but I will work with you no matter what in any sort of form of transition, should that need arise. Otherwise, I will continue to make that impact and grow and take things to this level, and this level, and beyond. So yeah, just more of an asterisk on that. All right, let's see what our 9th question is.
Most commonly asked question is, what are you looking for in a new position?
Okay, so this is honestly like the flip side. What are you looking for in a new position? This is sort of the flip of why did you leave your last role? And so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, I don't think, because I said that this is actually how you should answer that previous question of what made you leave your new company. Is you want to focus on what you're looking for in the next one. So I think the answer to this question is actually a combination of what made you leave and what are your career aspirations, and bringing those together into a succinct single answer. And so that's what I would really, really focus on here in my next role. Is in my next role, I am looking to do X, Y, Z that will contribute to ABC and your mission and your values. And that is what best aligns with, I think, my career path and how I can contribute to your organization's success. And then we can continue to foster and grow from there. So I really think that it's honestly a combination of the previous two questions combined, but let's see the distinction that Layla makes here.
When someone asks this, what they want is not a list of all your demands and desires that are, again, selfish and not company-centric. What they want is to understand what are the parameters that would make this a great job for you? What is your potential that's untapped, and in what environment would you thrive? And mostly what they want to know is, do your career goals align with the position? Do your strengths fit with the role, and do your desires fit with the role? Because someone might have strengths that fit with the role, but their desires for their career don't necessarily. And so they want to make sure that the desire also fits the role along with the strength. So what you want to do is explain what kind of environment you'd be best utilized in. So an example of that would be, what I'm looking for is a place where I can really fully utilize myself. I can build a department from scratch, which I know I can do because I've done it 3 other times, and I have the autonomy to do so. But I also have the support and clarity from leadership where they're telling me, hey, we'd rather have you do it this way or that way, or hey, that's not exactly how the company needs it. That's what I'm really looking for, is a place where I can have autonomy, but also support and clarity. And the last.
Okay. So I honestly think that she went into the same direction that I did. And I typically have really not been asked that question. If we're looking for the environment and cultural answers, that's usually how I've seen that question asked for myself and my clients more, is what type of work environment do you thrive in? What is your ideal work culture? What is your ideal leadership style for your managers and the people that you report to? So I think that question is typically framed a little bit differently in my experience, like I said, directly and with my clients. But yes, she is spot on how to frame those types of questions when they're asking about your environment and your culture that is ideal for you. It is, here is the type of company that I'm looking to work for and why I'm going to thrive in that and what value I can do because of the proven track record and how that relates to you back. Okay. On to our final interview question, number 10.
Most frequently asked question in a job interview is, do you have any questions for me?
Okay. So this is actually one of my favorite questions here. And so I'll be curious to see actually if Layla and I align here. But I mentioned from the beginning, and so did she, that really the interview is about driving value and impact. And so that is what you want to do here, is this is your opportunity to open up questions ask questions that open up the opportunity for you to effectively make that company money before they paid you a dime. So things like, what are the initial project or initiatives for this particular position? How do you measure success in this position? I also like to always ask, is this a net new, meaning a brand new hire, an expansion, or is this a backfill? If it's a backfill, then what changes from the previous role would you like to see out of this, right? You can also say, ask, am I able to ask? Did the person who was previously in this role, are they still with the organization or did they leave? These types of questions where you're asking about the projects, the initiatives, the measurements for success. How has the position changed or how did it come about? These are going to open up the opportunity for them to say, oh, well, the initial project is going to be revamping our call center script and operations to retain, customer retention. Beautiful. So here's how I go about that process and what I've done from my last 2 organizations. So now you're not actually assuming what it is that's going to be value driven based on the job description, but they are telling you the problems that you are going to solve, and you are already solving them for them in what you are going to do. And so effectively, like I said, you are actually driving revenue impacting discussion in the interview process, and you are solving problems before they ever even pay you. So it creates a very lopsided money equation in your favor that makes you remembered. The fact that you were willing to actually discuss what those were. And then you could ask those deeper questions. So, okay, you mentioned you were trying to do the call center script. What do you believe to be the current issue? What are the metrics now and what do you want them to be? What are your competitors' metrics, right? Having those discussions to get that insider information and dive deeper and demonstrate to them what your approach is going to be and what working with you is going to be like. You are turning the interview into a working session, again, with the assumed close, as if you were already there. So in this process, it's going to be, okay, so what we can do in rewriting this script is going to be A, B, and C. I would pull in yourself and, this team and this team and this team, pull us together. And I'd want us to talk about A, B, and C in this discussion, right? So again, you're using that us and we and together language of assumed close, but you do that with the questions that you are asking at the end. That is what you want to do, is you want to create questions that are going to open up the door for you to make them money. All right, let's see what Layla has to say.
This is always what people are going to ask towards the end of the interview, sometimes even in the beginning of the interview. And here's what they want. They want to know that you have thought about this decision. What they don't want is somebody who is thoughtless, who says, no, I really don't have any other questions. You don't have any other questions about the place you want to be for the next 2 to 4 years? That's bananas. Most people have questions. Most people just haven't sat and taken the time to think about what their questions are. So here's how I would answer that question. 1, be specific. Pull out a line from the job description that was on the posted site and say, I have a question about this piece that you wrote in the job description. 1, that shows that you read the job description, which a lot of people don't do thoroughly. And then 2, it shows that you were thoughtful enough to ask a question about it. The second thing you can do is you can ask, how would I exceed your expectations in this role? The best interviews I've had have been where candidates have asked me, how could I not meet your expectations, but exceed your expectations? And that's a great question for an employer, because then they're thinking, how would this person impress me? And you can start off on an even better foot, because you can get in there and right off the bat, you know what you can do to impress that person. And then the third thing that you can ask is, what would my onboarding look like? What would my 30, 60, 90 look like? The reason I ask about onboarding or 30, 60, 90 is important because it shows that you can see yourself being in the company. You have enough foresight to think, what's it going to look like when I get in there, and how can I prepare now? Which shows, again, that you're thoughtful and you're diligent. And as a bonus question, a lot of...
Okay, I just want to say that was a brilliant formula. I honestly have never thought of or look onto the job description for these questions. I've always made them more the open-ended, creating that, like I said, that working session, business session type of scenario. That's actually a great move. Full kudos to Layla. That's a brilliant recommendation that I'm going to steal from now on, is looking at the job description and directly pulling out something that matters to you. And everything else I feel like was very similar to what I was saying, where you are trying to create those discussions around how do you measure success. So that was her, how do I exceed your expectations? So on and so forth. Is you're trying to showcase your thoughtfulness, diligence, and drive value immediately in this ending part of the discussion. All right, let's see what this bonus question shenanigans is.
People ask me, Layla, how do I answer the question, what do you want to get paid? Here's the thing.
All right, what do you want to get paid? So I did not expect her to go into salary negotiation, because it's typically not in the interview. It is typically after the interview when they're looking to extend the offer, or it's on the front end with the recruiter or talent acquisition. But the key things of what I'm going to say here, again, is you want to be honest. In the application, you can give a range, but when you get to the discussion point, I don't like giving a range. I typically advise people to have that number in mind. Go into the interview already knowing the comp package that you want. And if able, have kind of maybe 2 or 3 variations. So have your dream. And because usually your negotiable things are going to be salary, bonus, if it's offered, or some other variation of bonus, stock options, or different things along those lines, and PTO. Those are what's negotiable. The rest of the benefits typically aren't. So usually I'd like to have a couple different variations there with those mixed bags that are ending up with very, very similar values. But before you get to that, how you determine what you're worth is by doing research. You look at 3 to 4 different sources: payscale.com, salary.com, Glassdoor, LinkedIn, Robert Half Technology Group. Look at different sources to research based off of your experience, your area, or if you're remote, then maybe where the company is based, and all these different factors from your education, your experience, and so on and so forth, what your actual salary range is, and go from there. But have it actually rooted in evidence. And so when they ask, what compensation package are you looking for, or what do you want to get paid? Then you can say, well, based on my research, here's what I have found and what I am looking for and what I believe that I am worth. Is that within your range? Is that what you are looking for? Right? Again, this is something that can immediately, pretty quickly ditch things to the side or be aligned. And then, you don't mention that you're negotiable. You just present to them what is your ideal package, and then let them come back with a counter offer from the beginning and from that get-go. Now, if it is something to where it's very, very, very undefined, or you can't find the research, then what I would do is actually play an ignorance card a little bit. So maybe this is a location that you've never lived in, or maybe you are relocating and you have an idea of what the cost of living is, but maybe not entirely. So this is where you play a little bit of an ignorance card and say, well, I'm not entirely sure because here's the factors that I can't seem to define in my research. So what is it, what is your range? What is the company thinking from that perspective? And then they are opening to present the number, and then you can go from there. You can specifically ask in that line of questioning, as opposed to what is the range. You could say, what is the budget? And that is a 50-50 one, because sometimes they'll give you the actual accurate budget, and sometimes they won't. But that's my advice: is have rooted in data what it is that you're going to ask for, and ask for the specific compensation. All right, let's see if Layla agrees or disagrees to wrap this up.
That's actually not something you can ask during a job interview. Nobody is actually allowed to answer that question or ask that question. So if somebody asks you, what are you being paid now? You actually don't need to answer it. So that is something a lot of people don't know. Now, what a lot of people do ask, the way to get around it, is to say, what is your goal salary? So a lot of employers will ask, tell me what your goal salary or goal compensation is. And here's how I would suggest to answer that to make the most amount of money. One, you have to understand that overshooting this is going to stab you in the foot. No employer is going to hire somebody who, say, the job is market value at $100,000 and you say $200,000. They're just not going to do that. And trust me, I have had that happen. And it's not appreciated because it's unrealistic. And so here's what you want to do to prepare for that question. One, you want to research the role. So go on salary.com, payscale.com, see how much that title and with your years of experience is worth in the market. Now, the second thing you want to do is, just like when you buy a house, you look at comps in the neighborhood, go look at companies that are similar and what are they paying for that role? Because the two pieces that go into determining compensation are the hard facts of researching and finding market value, and then also just taken from word on the street. Like,
that is a great point, to actually look at the company in the industry and like companies within the same industry. Because, like, for instance, I worked in oil and gas at one point, and oil and gas by far was about a 30 to 40% overpay for where I was in other industries. So spot on. I left that piece of research out. Thank you, Layla. Brilliant.
Like, what are people actually paying in similar companies? Because it might be a little different. Then you want to use that to come up with the range that you want to present to that person. So given that, come up with a range, make it fairly flexible. And then when they ask, what's your goal compensation? You can say the higher range. However, you can say the range. My goal would be to be between 110 to 130, preferably on the higher end. Based on my research, I've seen that companies like X, Y, and Z are paying about blank, and then companies at X, Y, and Z are paying blank. And if you look on payscaleandsalary.com, they're showing these. So when you're presenting that to them, you come off like a logical, rational thinking adult. Ultimately, the way that you present it and showing and telling them that you've done the research will probably get you paid.
Perfect. Like I said, do your research, mention you did your research throughout that interaction in order to try to maximize what you're getting for and make it rooted in reality. Now, the only thing that I will throw as an asterisk out of there is, yes, definitely shoot for that higher range, but recognize that if you are going on the higher end of the range, that you also might be one of the first or early ones on a chopping block in the event of financial issues with the company. So I tend to tell people that if you are going to go for the upper range, let's say, median again is your 50%, that I say default, unless you are somebody who is just not a high achiever or that you want to push yourself, I tell everybody to never go below median. Like, never ask for below median in your research. Median should be your baseline and what you're looking for. If you want to go for the high range, I tell people to, unless they're very risky, to stick to about 65 to 75%. Going above 75%, I think, makes you financially susceptible to potentially having issues. Like I said, if the company has problems or things outside of your factor, or maybe you have value-driven issues, like you aren't able to drive the value that you sold in the interview process, so on and so forth. I think it just puts you at a little bit higher risk. So and if you consistently negotiate, then I think that ultimately you still will end up winning in the long run. If you do get to that annual review and you killed the game and you delivered so much more value, then that's where you can justify going for the higher raise there, and so on and so forth. So just an additional thought, I'm not necessarily telling you to never go above that 75% range, but understand that my personal experience is that going above that presents its own level of risk upon you. And so if you want to go kind of that above median, 65 to 75% of the range that you are determining, I think is ideal, as opposed to the 90 to 100. All right. So with that, let's just wrap this up real quick. So I think Layla was brilliant. Hopefully, if you like this content, if you like her, please follow her on X, on YouTube, on everything. Same thing with her husband, Alex. I highly recommend them as additional sources of information. If you like this content, leave a comment, or if you like this format, because I think this is only the second time that I've done this, leave a comment below, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I am also on LinkedIn, X, Facebook, and Instagram, so please follow us and like there. I will respond to every single comment. If you have additional questions or things to add, or you want clarification maybe on both what Layla and I presented here, leave it down below. Till next time, thank you for joining me.